On episode 2 of Convergence, Brendan and I talk about whether and how it's possible to get what you want out of life with way less effort. So, you've got follow-up from when last we spoke.
I do. A couple things that we talked about. We had mentioned the term right action, and I was stumbling over my memory trying to remember where I knew that from. And you had mentioned Buddhism, I think. I had mentioned to be magnetic, and I think neither of those are where I know the term right action from. I know it from Enneagram work, and actually from being a 9. A 9 is typically averse to causing any disruption in other people's lives. They want to keep the peace both internally and externally, and so they often don't do things. They will think things, but not like put that action out into the world until there is some sort of justice issue or conviction or state something that goes beyond like, okay, I don't care whose feathers I ruffle. This is right action for me. This is something I have to do.
A transgression has occurred.
Yeah.
And therefore a right must be wronged. Or a wrong must be righted. Yes.
Exactly. And I was confusing that with to be magnetic, they have aligned action. Aligned action for that is something that aligns with your authentic code. In this manifestation world, you create 4 words, that's your authentic code, and you run everything that you do by those 4 words to make sure that it aligns with you in some way and aligns with where you are and where you want to be. And I think the combination of those two, aligned right action, is the way to go.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Always for some ARA. Talk to me about manifestation.
Oh my God, dude. It has brought me so many cool things. And by things, I don't mean possessions, but just happenings. So manifestation, like there's a whole big world of it that's just people just generally know. And I know just one segment of it, which is this paid program called To Be Magnetic, where it's kind of like it's a service for rich white women who want more of their own stuff. Like it's really the program is designed pretty for a segment of audience, sure. But the lessons apply to everybody, which is really great. And it's a way of getting you to do things for yourself, to get your head in the right space, to get your actions in the right space for you to achieve the goals that you want. A big part of it is making lists, like lists of the minor and major manifestations that you want to bring into your life. And also in the program that I do, it's also about reprogramming your traumas and your damage. So like there's an inner child workshop where you go through different stages of childhood and you do these guided meditations that have binaural beats and they have like different prompts for you to do tapping on yourself so you can kind of get an EMDR like back and forth sensation in your brain. And these will help you unblock traumas in your mind and things from the past that are keeping you stuck in your current patterns and current way of thinking, and breaks you free from that so you can see the wider world. You can open your mind a bit, and it does it in TBM at least does it in a really gentle way, guiding you through the process step by step. There's a lot of prompts for journal entries to get you to express and dump the details out of you and get some momentum going. And so it's mostly like figuring out your authentic code, which is like 4 words that you run everything by. And for me, my 4 words are love, home, art, and growth. And to me, those mean a lot of things. They don't just mean those, like the dictionary definitions of those words, but love for me is not just my love for Margaret, but also my love for my friends and my cats and literally everybody. And like just the idea of loving in general is something that's really important to me. And so if something in my life I encounter is not a loving action or a loving situation, that's not for me. I don't want to be causing harm. I don't want to be disrupting people and that kind of thing. So that would be something that no, I'm not going to do that because that doesn't align with me. But yeah, the authentic code, doing journal entries, doing meditations, guided meditations, and these are the kind of the core things for the TBM side of the manifestation world. Outside of TBM, I think there's a lot of like vision boards and positive thinking and like something called like staying in the vortex. And I have no idea what I know what a vision board is, but like Pinterest is great. But one of the things that Lacey Phillips, the creator and curator of TBM, says is like, if you clip out a couple walking on a beach and put it on your vision board for your partner, like you're trying to call in the person that you want to marry, and you put a picture of a couple walking on the beach. Well, your brain is seeing 2 other people walking on the beach. Like it's not seeing you, and it's you. One of the big things with being able to actually call in and bring in the things that you want on your manifestation lists is to know that you can have that. And part of the reprogramming is being able to see, to believe that if that person can have it, I can have it, that we're the same. You got to another big part of it is finding expanders. Expanders are other people or other situations that you can relate to and see, like, they're just like me. They've had this same background. They've had this same struggle. I've been through that. If they can get through that and now have what I want, I can have that too. Yeah, I can't recommend To Be Magnetic enough, even though it's kind of pricey and very silly at times. It's really great. The meditations, they're called DIs, for deep imaginings, are so interesting. There's quite a big variety of them, but they're all kind of the same. They got the binaural beats going on, and it's Lacey Phillips or sometimes a couple other people just giving you a few things to kind of keep you down into a theta state, and then giving you these prompts that like I can't even recall them, because I feel like I'm just in this subconscious like state where I'm not even really thinking about anything. And that's a cool thing too, is that you can't consciously, according to Be Magnetic's teachings, you can't consciously get your self-worth up. Because then everybody would do that. We would consciously think, I'm worth it, But like, you have to do it through the subconscious. Your subconscious has to realize that your worth is there. And when you realize your worth is there, that's when things come in and you achieve the things that you want. Because you're calling in things that are above your self-worth, because you're not there yet. Otherwise you'd have it already. And so you gotta do the work to raise your subconscious worth. And when you're in these specific deep imaginings, meditations, according to them and from my experience, you're at the subconscious level listening to these things, and it's helping reprogram and create new neural pathways. And through repetition, those pathways can stick, and all the goodness comes in. And I can tell you about the list of things that have come into my life since I started doing this, and it's long.
There's an interesting use. It's going to sound like an absolute curveball tangent, but there's an interesting use, I think, in something like AI, in being able to consume, for lack of a better word, or sort of understand all of these programs, because there are many, and I think, you know, something that you said earlier about it being silly in places. I think this is what's really interesting is how bits and pieces we take elements from programs, whether it's self-improvement or whether it's, you know, business, marketing, health, whatever those things might be. We take the bits that apply to us and feel like they speak to us, and then we reject or we ignore the bits that feel a bit, you know, silly. There are communities I'm in where some of the language it kind of makes my eyes roll into the back of my head, but I enjoy the other, 95% of what I'm there for. And there's something interesting, I think, about an AI product or something that can know that about you, know the things about which you're cynical, and the things that you are engaged with, and maybe the things that you're okay to be opened up to, I think.
Yeah, to that point, I was listening to Alan Watts yesterday, or 2 days ago, and he said something about how a typical person is only, in their best moment, is only ever willing to accept a 5% change in the way they think. And that's on a good day.
I've been trying to get my head around the 3 principles for feels like a good couple of years now, which is that the idea of, I'm going to get it wrong now because it doesn't quite stick. I like the concept about it's the whole thing about how we are not our thoughts, and there is and how everything is really our perception, and so every situation that you are in can be made tolerable or better by realizing that's just a thought or a feeling that you're having. That's not you, or that's not your true experience. And some people, it's blown the doors off for them. And for others, like me, I understand it I get what they're getting at, but it hasn't yet, that token hasn't yet dropped into my personal pachinko machine, where I've, and maybe I just have to keep chipping away at 5%, and suddenly I'll have that awakening, just like the Scotsman, the Scottish welder did, when he realised this, or is it Michael Neal who had the "Why Aren't We Awesomer" talk and talked about it, and I don't know.
For me, both 2B magnetic and Enneagram work were 2 of the major things that have gotten me to really solidify that concept you were just talking about that the way our mind works, the thoughts our train of thought is not ourselves. On top of that, also a lot of Alan Watts and Ram Dass books have been. I really like. There's one concept from Alan Watts about. He just really helped me. He helped me understand that we're all God, and also that, that God is a metaphor. all the religious stuff that's supposed to be taken as metaphor, and conceptually I knew that, but I grew up with around so many people that took it so literally, and I was just like, what the F are you guys doing? But also I could everybody took it so literally, so I thought that it was supposed to be taken literally, but I could see it was a metaphor, and that it shouldn't be taken literally. but my brain couldn't make the connection to where, well, I can just take it I can just take it figuratively. I don't have to take it literally. But my brain was still holding on to taking it literally. So I was super atheist for so long. And then I kind of like drifted into the spiritual world, just being like, I know that there's things that I don't understand. I know that there's things that science doesn't explain. You know, science just doesn't get it yet, you know, and you know, there's some sort of energy connection. I believe in a collective unconscious. I understand that people can maybe not be telepathic, but like can understand each other, that can vibe. There's something more there. And it wasn't until recently that I've been accepting the word God and not being triggered by it. But this, like, now I'm less like, you know, an original translation of the word God is creation. And our bodies, our cells are literally dividing and creating constantly. We are just full of God. And like, you know, like when I was a kid and somebody would say, "Oh yeah, God is inside you." It's like, okay, so the man in the sky is like a ghost in me? Like, what the fuck? What? And so anyways, yeah.
Yeah. I have long conversations with another friend from across the pond on this kind of stuff, and I think I think the three of us are, oddly enough, at a similar kind of stage, really. I think I went through my hardcore arsehole atheist years, just being a jerk about it, and upsetting people, and you know, I mean, not like maliciously, but certainly not, you know, as kindly as I might. And then, I don't know, over the last 10 years, maybe a little more, the idea of certainty in general has been something that I've kind of rejected, of just like, I'm almost made a little bit uncomfortable by people who are certain of something, because you can't really be certain of anything. And I know that again, that may sound a little bit woo-woo or whatever, but I mean, really, you know, again, it's all perception, and it's all how we perceive things. But you know, you take a God, like, how crazy is it to be definite about, you know, you've got the arsehole atheists like now Ricky Gervais. I think he's now become one, has been one for years, and Richard Dawkins, I think at whose feet he sits, and that level of it's not just, you know, the burden of proof is on you kind of thing, which is one aspect, but it's also the certainty with which they carry that belief. And yeah, I think as I get older, religiously, zealously unreligious, and that is a thing. So my other transatlantic, or one of my other transatlantic friends with whom I have these conversations, I got a bit. And it'll be interesting if I might invite her to listen to this episode. I might not. We'll see. I got a bit prickly over a conversation we were having, and it was a little bit to do with manifestation, a little bit to do with sort of three principles things, and an aspect to which sort of she views some of that stuff, where it is as a religion. It is for her. She holds it with zeal, like, and you know, and I've tried to say, like, that's not my experience or whatever, and you know, that doesn't ring true for me, or that, you know, that isn't how the world works, because I think her interpretation of it is perhaps slightly different from, you know, from yours or from others, and I found it a difficult conversation, because for her, there was that certainty. There was that degree of, well, no, this is science, and again, like, that's her science. That's science that can be found and can be accessed and can be read, but it's not, you know, what I can identify with. And I kind of realised, like, just as a shower thought, like, this is a religion to her. She has had the thing like we had. She's had, you know, Catholicism or whatever
the come
other
to Jesus
religions.
moment with atheism.
Yeah. And she's heard the Jesus stuff before and rejected it, and because I tried to say to her is, I think what you have is a faith. What you have is, and that kind of bridled with her. Like, she didn't really appreciate that, but it's that sort of understanding again that like some beliefs are just held really, with that zeal. And okay, like it might upset someone to call it a religion, and that's fair enough, because that's a big word with a big capital letter R at the beginning. But it is something that you can hold with zeal and hold with certainty, and like we get back to that certainty thing again. And it's also about proselytizing, which is one of the most awkward words to say.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, you will know this, and I've been there as well. My brother's been there. Lots of people who want to improve my life have had this experience. There is nothing like the zeal of the converted.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I shouldn't reveal this, but there's I have a good friend that we want to start making music together, and nobody take this. This is copyrighted. But TM. We want to call our first album "The Zeal of the Newly Enlightened."
Yes.
Yeah, because I definitely am super guilty of that. Finding a new thing, having any sort of success with it, and just wanting to shout it from the rooftops and not everybody know about this cool thing.
I am absolutely the same, 100% the same, and I think it's natural, and I think it comes from the best of places.
It does. It really does.
Because it's like, this has worked for me.
Yeah, it could work for you too.
Hard, exactly. And what's so hard is it comes back to my thing about the AI. It's like you have your bits of this bento box of stuff that you can that resonates with you, and then there's other little bits of that you're like, oh, I ignore that bit. And other people are going to have those, and it might just be that the bit they go, I'm not engaging with that. That might be the linchpin, that might be the thing that you really connected with that helped you understand it. And yeah, it's really tricky trying to help people find these things. And I think all you can do is sort of it's kind of be that person who's like, wait for them to discover it.
I know,
and then
man, I hate that.
You've got to have that moment of, oh, you discovered that, did you? Okay, well done. Like, okay, I've been telling you about it for 3 years, but you just discovered it, did you? Okay. In the same way that the kids nowadays will be like, have you heard of this sitcom on Netflix called Friends? And it's like,
it's an oldie, but I like it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you've just discovered it, but some of us were there 20-something years ago.
Yeah. We VCR'd this you've kind kid.
Yeah, exactly. You've kind of got to wait for people, I think, to find it, and then be like, "Cool, now you're here. Let's have a chat about it. Let's get on this together."
Yeah. My biggest problem is with friends that aren't looking to work on themselves. Like I love working on myself and trying to find a new thing that takes me to the next level and keep chugging along at this and. Then I get something works for me and I get excited and I want to share it with a friend and they're like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And then they just keep doing their lives. You don't get it. It's like, but it's so cool. And also, don't you see how this could make your life easier? Like you are struggling right now, my dude. Like you're pushing yourself just barely to get by. And then, that's the whole reason why they can't put in that extra effort, because they have putting in all of their effort to just get through the day. And I so relate. I've been there before, and I often try and think back. I'm like, how did I get out of that? And getting divorced, that was a big help.
Well, there's a thing there about sort of ruptures.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes those ruptures to have a realization. There's a book which is like a lot of, if you'll excuse me, American sort of self-help books. There's a lot of not just God, which is fine, but there's specifically a lot of church in a lot of books that are in the sort of self-help genre, which again, roll my eyes out a little. But there's a book called The Second Mountain, which talks about, it's a really interesting concept where for what usually happens is people live the sort of the usual life. They do their work. They get to a point where they're quite successful. It doesn't have to be, necessarily in terms of work, but where they're quite successful, and then they get to a point where they want to start giving back, and that's the second mountain. And it's all about how, if you are someone who works in knowledge, or it's the time when you want to write the book. It's the time when you want to create the course. It's the time when you want to proselytize, and spread your big idea. And it's quite interesting. I think I'm still trying to find. I think I thought I was on it, and I'm not there yet. As I'm discovering, and to your point about effort, like I'm on this journey, or this little quest to try and not necessarily do less, but be more effortless.
Yes.
And again, there's people in my sphere who are like, finally, Mark, you've been saying this for ages or whatever. Because I've, so quick possible tangent, because we may talk about this later. But I've just, what's really interesting. So I'm consolidating all of my, my different identities, and they're all going into one place. And so everything now is on one website, the whole mark of everything. And there's stuff there that goes back to 2008. If I wanted to, there's stuff that could go back further, but some of my writing, as I discovered yesterday, is absolutely intolerable. Some of my stuff from like 2006, 2007, which I managed to find through the Wayback Machine. Oh, God, I hate that version of me.
Oh.
Really, really obnoxious. Anyway.
I love all versions of you, Mark.
Thank you. Someone has to. It's you and my mum, so thank you for being there.
Yeah, my pleasure.
What I discovered was I haven't changed in 20 years, because I was looking at stuff again through the Wayback Machine, bits of software, software products and things that I'd create. I call them products, but like software projects that I'd created that had, brands and names and all sorts of stuff. I have not stopped. I have creating, coming up with ideas, executing on the thing, and then, I don't know, get bored, get distracted, whatever, and on to the next thing. And it was just really interesting to look at that and go, yeah, like I'm still in the same patterns. And okay, it gets me this like ridiculous archive of stuff that I can go back to, and these memories I can live or relive. But ultimately, I'm I'm worse off than I was when I had a job. I'm happier. I'm definitely happier. Definitely more content. I have way more autonomy, but I still haven't found my thing. And that's because part of the problem is I keep looking for my thing instead of actually just...
That it perfectly segues into my second piece of follow-up. We're still in follow-up. No. But before that, you mentioned The Second Mountain, and that reminds me of the book I'm actually listening to right now for the second time, which is called Falling Upward by Richard Rohr. And he's an expert in Enneagram work, and that's how I found out about him. And then I just stumbled upon his book called Falling Upward, which is about the second phase of life. And like the first phase of life is all about like finding relationships, finding a job, finding your place in the world. The second phase of life is to go on your hero's journey, leave home, leave the safety of that, go and do something bigger and better and grow. And so the second mountain sounds very similar in that regard. But the doing, the difficult doing that you mentioned, this is a big thing. This is a big reason why I wanted to talk to you about Enneagram and find out what your number was and talk to you about it, because and I'm so excited that we're the same number, because it's just I don't have to go into a whole bunch of extra stuff because this is not an Enneagram podcast. But the 9 So the quickly about the Enneagram, there's 9 numbers. Each of them, there's 2 separate triads of thinking, feeling, and doing. You're either dominant or repressed in one of those 2 things. And so Enneagram 9s, the 3, 6, and 9 are in this middle triangle that have the same repression as they do their dominant center. And we, as 9s, are both doing repressed and doing dominant. So everybody does things. And so if you're doing repressed, that doesn't mean you don't do anything. What it means is that you don't do the thing that you really need to be doing. And what you're doing doesn't bring in.
Yeah. Oh, I feel seen.
Yeah. Oh man. If you want to feel seen in like kind of the worst but best way, deep dive into Enneagram work, because it's like, whoa.
Oh, I mean, I've got a big expensive report that my friend enabled me to do a couple of years ago, and I've got to find out where it is and dive back into it because
yeah. So a 9 is doing dominant, which means we bring in information by doing. That's how we understand the world. The thinking and feeling are there and they support doing, but it's by us actually doing that we gain knowledge, gain experience, understand, comprehend the world. But then we don't use doing to functionally get what we're after. And so we have to do things to bring up our doing center and get it into something that's productive and useful for us. And for me, a lot of the tips that have been helpful for me have been like making priority lists, making lists, and thinking about what is it I'm supposed to, or what is it I need to be doing right now, and or if you're presented with options, what is mine to do? And since we are doing dominant and doing repressed, like doing is going to be a lot on our mind. And it's, the idea of this podcast is all about doing and what we're doing and how we're doing it. I think that this is going to be, it's both us not actually doing the thing, but talking about it and thinking about it and feeling about it.
So I want to dive into that doing that is not necessarily productive. So because that again makes me go a little bit cold.
What do you mean by cold?
Again, it feels. I think I'm in a point where I've done so much doing over the last few years because it's felt like control. It's felt like, well, in order for me to achieve, whatever it is, getting more business in, making myself a bit more financially secure, that has to involve a lot of doing. And so my doing is coming up with ideas. My doing is creating brands, is creating series of things, it's creating commitments and saying...
Creating commitments. Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And very much that. And for a lot of what I do, and because I move so quickly, it's not as if I get it would be very easy to read this and say you get distracted and you go on to the next thing, but actually what happens is I evolve, and then that idea no longer quite serves the new evolution. And so I end up with all of this doing. But I think one of the things that if I stop and actually really think about it, very few of the bigger opportunities that I've had, if any, have actually come from any of the doing. They've come from being. They've come from being in spaces. They've come from talking to people. One of my biggest opportunities that I have at the moment, that I'm continuing to work with, is it came from a talk I gave, which I was asked to do, not because any of my doing, but because of, they didn't want to know about the things, the doing. They wanted to know about me and my story, and that's what the talk was. And it just so happened that I had. Thank you. It just so happened that I had, services there that one or two people thought might be useful, and so. Again, all of this creation, all of this writing, podcasting, recording, planning, thinking, worrying, obsessing, all of this debt, all of that really has been because I find it so difficult to believe that things can happen without the doing.
Yes. That is such a Nine thing to say.
Yeah. Such a Samantha. So you end up with this, with this unproductive doing.
Yeah, absolutely. A big part of something I've learned recently about the doing is with the Enneagram work is because we process the world by doing, we actually have to do those unproductive doing things to get us to understand the thing that we actually should be doing. So an example for me is often I'll make a list of all the things I need to do in the day. And, it'll be all right, I need to work on my house. I need to, I'm building a new bedroom, and I got to feed these dogs that were dog sitting and take them for a walk. I need to, make myself lunch, etc. A few other things. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to work on the cottage. I'm going to go out to the shed and grab a couple tools. I get to the shed and it's a disaster. There's stuff everywhere. And I'm just like, I can't find the thing. Well, obviously I need to clean to be able to find the thing. And so I'm doing this cleaning task that was not on my list, but it helps me process, it helps me prepare myself and feel better about the things that I'm doing. So I'm being unproductive, but also being productive. I'm being productive. I'm cleaning. That's a good thing. But that's not what I set myself out to do today. And so I'm distracting myself from my goals. I'm taking myself away from accomplishing what I'm ultimately wanting to do. Like finishing this bedroom is way more important than keeping the shed clean. But in the long scheme of things, but I need to do that today in order for me to get any work done on the bedroom, because my brain is now not tidy because I'm thinking about the shed and how I can't find anything.
So it's sort of what you would call what Americans call puttering and we would call pottering. I think it's there is a productivity, there is a utility in that, and I like that idea of, because I've got into that sometimes where if I'm working on something and the brain wants to pop up a little idea like a little Jack Russell Terrier and go, hey, here's a thing you can do, is rather than try and push that down and repress it or push it away, is to note it down and actually put it somewhere so that the loop is closed. And so that there is actually some kind of, not necessarily action there, but at least you've, recognized that idea. If I think about my to-do list, or if I think about there's my concrete to-do list and my real to-do list, and then there's my sort of vague, I'm supposed to do this. There are the things I'm supposed to put on my to-do list that are sort of over here and wibbly-wobbly and wishy-washy. And if I think about either of those, I just want to work on my website. And that's, and I'm very good at convincing myself that I can just do this now, or no, I need this for my work.
I love that phrase.
Which is the biggest lie. Because again, it's having to remember, like, I haven't got where I am because I have a nice looking website. But it's so hard to not do that, and to edit the episode that you're supposed to edit, or register that domain name for a client, or do whatever the thing is. And so what I think is I guess it's got to come down to, and I think we've maybe been dancing around it a little bit, is about priorities, but not in terms of that arms crossed, you've got to figure out what your priorities are, mister, but in terms of actually gently saying, well, what is important to you? This job over here now does not seem important, but it serves this higher goal of getting more, for me again, being more financially secure. Well, if I finish the jobs that I need to do, then that frees me up to then do the next bit of the work that can then hopefully bring in more business, or it makes sure my customer satisfaction is higher because, like there's all these things. And so, I don't know whether that was where you were thinking of going with this, but in terms of connecting it back to what those core priorities are, like that's what we've got to do with these jobs.
Exactly. And not to overpress on my zeal of the converted, but that's the biggest help from To Be Magnetic for me, is it gets you to journal in the right way that has really good prompts and gets you to make lists of the things that you really want, and it gets you to think about what you actually need to do to get there. And it's like they're happy for you to do long-term far off goals. Like I have one of my manifestations is this compound that we talked about last episode, about like the big place or the build up and the resort type thing. And that, like, that's, my 10, 15 year plan, whatever. But they really want you to focus more on like 6 to 9 months, 6 to 12 months. What can you conceivably bring into your life? Because you can kind of get your mind around that more. You can see the steps to get there. You can more easily, it's only a 5% change instead of a 35% change to get to, a big thing far off. And so I love it.
And that sort of makes me want to reconnect, I think, with, and it comes back to the bento box of ideas. I want to reconnect, I think, with the Atomic Habits book, because there is something in there that I know is more than the nugget of a good idea. It's like it's absolutely the nucleus of a great thing. It's these small repeatable actions, and don't worry about the outcome, really. Worry about the doing, but the doing in the right way. Worry about the setting up the habits based on the intentions that you want, and just getting that little increment over time, but basing everything on your output rather than the outcome. And I love all of that. And I think at some point I got a little bit, I think, maybe lost in the implementation from his perspective, because what a lot of these books don't really go into is the assumption that they make about the life that you lead. A lot of these are written by and for people who have virtual assistants, or they're men who can go and do the men things while the women do the women things. And I'm being as arseholely gendered as I mean to in that. There is, and they're often fathers, and they don't really talk. They might vaguely talk about being a better father or being a better whatever, but somehow all of that stuff doesn't really enter into it. And they talk about these various things that you can do, and I think few of them acknowledge, yes, but some of us also have to take, like, we don't have someone who can take care of our lives when we're busy doing the habit stuff. We also need to do, with these people who talk about you only have to do the things that you want to do. Not really. I don't want to do the dishes, but if I don't do the dishes won't get done. I don't want to clean the poop out of the litter tray every morning, but if I don't do it, you know what happens.
Want to have cats and dishes. And so,
yeah. And that's yes, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's the point that connects us back to the wider goal. Yes. But yeah, I think that where I got a little jaded and where I think I need to pull back is not so much worrying about how these people implement their idea, because Atomic Habits is a great idea. I should worry less about how he implements it with his team around him and think about, okay, how can I make it work for myself as someone who is a single person, who doesn't have a VA, who's got to fit life around these things. How can I make that work? And I think, again, it's back to that thing I said earlier on about like this, whether it's an AI or whatever, that helps us take all of these different concepts, these things, and just helps us tweak them so that we can build our own little bento box of the stuff that works for us in our lives.
I'm so excited to see what you do with AI and how, because you've been using it in some really interesting ways, and I'm excited to explore further in this podcast about what and how you're making that happen. Because you showed me the photo of, or the cover art for this podcast, and I had one tiny little tweak, and you sent it through some AI thing and did it, and it was fantastic, and I was like, whoa, how what, like, did you type in remove signpost behind letter O? Like, what happened? What did you do? How did that happen? And so I'm really excited to get further into that.
Yeah, absolutely. We should definitely sit and have an hour-long conversation about AI, because I think we could, because we haven't got through like any of the stuff that we were going to talk about this week. So
yeah, we just did follow up today.
which is absolutely fine. They will move on to next week, or they won't.
I hope they do, because those look interesting.
yeah, there is some stuff there. I feel like the not doing is going to be more and more of a staple, I think, for me, and it's coming with some guilt. Like, and I I have to be okay with that. There's this podcast idea that I put a fair amount of work into, and recorded 4 episodes of, and I've now got to figure out what I tell those people. And there's a part of me that wants to still put them out somewhere because they're useful.
You could always have a limited series.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's stuff I recorded in January for Beware of the Leopard with 2 internet people that I think you will know, that I haven't done anything with, and they will have forgotten about it by now, but maybe not, and also that's not the point. It was there were really lovely conversations, and we just haven't been able to find the time. This one actually just isn't just on me, to find the time to do them. But I think I've done so much doing with Bramble over the last few months with getting that on its feet, and there's still lots and lots and lots and lots to do. But I think getting to this point in my evolution where I'm focusing on doing less, but also having to deal with the guilt, a little bit of the guilt of what that means. It's a weird time.
If I may be so bold,
oh please.
Not my place and not even my ability, but I would so love to absolve you of all of that guilt. Like, that you have nothing at all to feel guilty for. You're doing the best you can. You're doing so much, and it's all really great. And you don't owe anybody anything at all. Like, and I'm saying that as a question, but it's not. Our burden as creatives, as people with ideas, especially people who have ideas that can also do something and that can make those ideas happen, that's a struggle, man, because we come up with so many cool things to do. Like, I still want to make a new wedding video from my wedding a year and a half ago. Like, and it's on my list. I want to make a vacation video from that massive trip I took, and I made a bunch of small ones because it was easy to do in just like on a train ride. But then now I'm back home and I want to look at all of the clips and make a big video of the whole thing. And that's it. Just I want to put time into. I want it to be good, so I want to put time into it. And there's only so much time, and you have to forgive yourself that there's only so much time and you can't do it all. And you're going to have great ideas that you can't do. And you're going to have great ideas that you're going to start and can't finish. And that's just fine.
One of the things that I'm aware of as time goes on is how much time I did have that I don't really, because I've sort of, I'd spent time admonishing myself for not doing certain things or not doing enough or whatever, ironically enough. But when I look back on some of these projects and some of the things that I did, I had way, way more free time than I do now. And some of that is because I as I say that, I sort of half reject it because there is no such thing as not enough time. It's all about priorities. It's all, there is time. There is time enough to exercise. There is time enough to plan, to make sure that the right stuff is in the fridge. There is time, it's all about again going back to those priorities. And I think, there is some work to be done for me, and I tried to do this earlier in the year of going back to those core things of what do I want out of life, and then. But I think what I've got to do is actually think about it less in terms of doing and more in terms of, I don't know, what the alternative is, feeling.
And thinking.
Yeah. Well, that will be something to explore next week, I guess.
Yeah. One quick thing that made me think of, hopefully this doesn't make us go on for another hour, but I did a TBM DI. It was called Future Self, and it has you think about yourself in 1 year, in 10 years, and at the end of your life. And it asks you at the end of your life spot, how old are you? And I did this a year ago. I was 37, and immediately it just felt right. I thought of myself as 87. I'm like, I'm on my deathbed. I'm just peacefully kind of fading away. I'm 87 years old. And I'm like, when I came out of it and I was like kind of processing later, I was like, that means I got 50 years left. I'm not even halfway through. And like, the first chunk of my life, I was a baby. The second chunk of my life, my 20s and a little bit past that, I was trapped in an abusive marriage and stuck. And like, I feel like I've only been myself for a few years, and I've got 50 more years. I'm like so excited. I got all this potential to do. And I see that for you too. Like, you had to go through all of those things. You had to quote unquote waste that time in order to get here where you are, or else you wouldn't be you. You wouldn't have done that otherwise. So you got all the time in the world, man.
Oh, well, if you'd like to, dear listener, would like to continue to stroll with us along this little journey as we figure out what we're going to do with our lives, with our remaining 50% of our lives, then you can find us at convergencepod.com and find ways to get in touch with us. And as we move on, I'm sure we'll find ways for you to actually say hello. Wow, what a pleasure. And who knows where we'll be and what we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, hopefully something on the list. This is actually Enneagram related, about people who are doing repressed and counting down, but usually it's just a 3, 2, 1 go, and it's just a way to kind of get you out of your out of your stuckness and be like, okay, I've been sitting here on the couch. Man, I really don't want to get up, but I got to go do the dishes and get ready for bed. 3, 2, 1, go. And then just
I do that.
get up. Yeah. It's a good tactic.